Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my Endless Diary Tales channel? Thank you so much. Ethan Hale brought the girl he was sponsoring back home, and in front of so many people, he bluntly refused to marry me. He said I was a lady he didn't deserve and that Lena needed him more. I only asked one question. Are you sure? Lena immediately assumed I was looking down on her. She burst into tears, ran outside, and got into a car accident that left her legs permanently disabled. Ethan glared at me, his voice harsh as he growled that someone had harmed Lena and he would make that woman pay. At first, he still tried to endure everything, but later he joined hands with my family's competitors, caused the collapse of my family's company, and ultimately drove me to my death. When I came back to life, I returned to that exact day. Looking at the two of them, I smiled. They truly were a perfect match. But the money I had just invested in him, he should return it to me, shouldn't he? At Mr. Hale's birthday banquet, the most powerful figures in the capital gathered. Of course, it wasn't because Mr. Hale had such great prestige, but because everyone was waiting for a major announcement. I and his grandson Ethan Hale would officially be engaged. The Stone family had been an aristocratic lineage for a century, standing at the very top, while the Hale family was a small, late-rising household that had only achieved their success thanks to relying on my grandfather. In this marriage, the Hale family was the one who benefited. They should have considered it a blessing from their ancestors. Yet, no one at the banquet expected Ethan Hale to refuse, not even the me of my previous life. Mr. Hale smiled and raised his voice loudly, saying he was honored everyone had come to celebrate his birthday, and even happier to announce that his grandson Ethan Hale would be engaged to Miss Stella Stone of the Stone family. Applause erupted across the hall. Everyone thought this was exactly what should happen. But then a voice full of impatience and anger rang out. Grandpa, I refuse. Stella is a lady. I don't deserve her. Lena is the one who needs me more. The girl beside him, Lena, lifted her head slightly. She wore a cheap evening dress, her figure thin, her hair dry and brittle, her appearance ordinary, with only a pair of clear deer-like eyes that made her look slightly noticeable. Mr. Hale froze for a moment before reacting, then angrily shouted, "What did you just say?" Ethan wrapped an arm firmly around Lena's waist, standing straight like a solid mountain. I said that in this lifetime, I will only marry Lena. No matter who objects, it's useless. Mr. Hale grew furious and threw his glass of tea at him. Tea splashed across Ethan's face, but he didn't dodge. Instead, he turned to look at me, his gaze unwavering. Stella, the person I love is Lena, I hope. Before he could finish, I smiled and cut him off. There's nothing to hope for. I give my blessings to the two of you. You truly are a perfect pair. Right in front of everyone here. I believed anyone would feel touched by the pure and sincere love between them. When the two of you get married, be sure to tell me. I'll prepare a grand wedding gift. And to avoid any misunderstandings between us, please return the money I just invested in you. My decisiveness left Ethan stunned for a long while. Then uncertainty flickered across his face. Stella, we've cooperated well in the past. There's no need to end our partnership over something so small. He clearly wanted both sides while pretending to be righteous. He probably assumed I cared about saving face in front of so many people and wouldn't contradict him, so the matter would simply pass. I chuckled and gently swirled the wine in my hand. Mr. Ethan Hale, I think you're mistaken. All the uncles and gentlemen here want to work with me. Why would I choose you? There are countless people better than you, cheaper than you, and far more capable than you. If it weren't for our engagement, where do you think my $30 million in annual investments would go? Just hearing their names carries more value than yours. Ethan's face turned completely pale. He had never imagined that I, the woman who had never spoken harshly to him even once, would humiliate him like this in front of so many people. I stared at him coldly, the corner of my lips lifting in a mocking smile. If you can't even endure this little bit of humiliation, then what exactly do you plan to do later? The guests around us tried to hold back their laughter, their eyes openly filled with mockery as they looked at him. His hands tightened into fists, but his face forced a look of helplessness and exaggerated affection. Stella, you're still as willful as ever, he said, pretending to indulge me. In my previous life, I had been deceived so miserably by him that now seeing him act like this, all I wanted was to rush over and slap him a few times. But I held myself back because it wasn't time yet. and just 2 slaps wouldn't be enough. I smiled faintly. A normal person wouldn't develop romantic feelings for a girl who isn't even of age. Lena immediately tried to defend him. You misunderstood, sister. I was the one who liked Ethan first. I only confessed to him after I became an adult. The more they tried to explain, the more they confirmed Ethan's betrayal and Lena's shamelessness. This would become a lifelong stain on both of them. I tilted my head back and finished my glass of wine before placing it on the waiter's tray. My voice rang out clearly. From this moment on, the engagement between me and Mr. Ethan Hale is officially over. We no longer have anything to do with each other. With that, I strode out of the banquet hall. Why should I endure humiliation? Why should I protect their reputation? I wanted the entire capital to know that Ethan Hale and I were done and force everyone to choose whose side to stand on. Behind me, I heard hurried footsteps. A large number of guests who respected my family immediately followed me out. In the blink of an eye, more than 2/3 of the once lively banquet had emptied out, and those who stayed were merely people from the middle class or lower. The moment I reached the doors, I heard shouting and slapping inside the hall. Mr. Hale's furious voice roared, "You disgraceful brat! The Hale family will be destroyed by your hands sooner or later, you damned fool." That very night, my parents flew back from overseas. Nothing was more important to them than their beloved daughter. My mother rushed over first. "Stella, what happened? Haven't you and Ethan always been doing well? Why did things blow up like this?" Her face was full of worry. She looked carefully into my eyes, and after confirming there were no signs of crying, she finally exhaled a tiny breath of relief. My father placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. "We don't know what happened between you and Ethan Hale, but ever since you were little, you've always had a mind of your own. If you've made a decision, then just do what you want. Leave the rest to us." This was the foundation that allowed me to walk out of that banquet with such boldness. I was the only heir of the Stone family, an only child carried through 3 generations, and I had been adored since the day I was born. My father turned to my mother. "What do you think? Why don't we just buy the Hale family? Their funds don't look too bad." My parents were silent for a few seconds. Then they both nodded. "Stella, we always listen to you. But you know, your grandfather and Mr. Hale have a deep bond." I frowned slightly and pressed my lips together. "Fine, then leave him with the old man. But Ethan Hale shouldn't even dream about inheriting anything anymore. Isn't there anyone more capable in the Hale family?" My parents exchanged a look and answered in unison, "Adrian." I nodded. "All right, then it'll be him." They looked at me with a complicated expression. If it's him, then he really is more suitable than Ethan. Only then did I realize the person originally chosen to be engaged to me wasn't Ethan Hale at all, but Adrian Hale. Adrian was the son of the first wife, a dignified and elegant lady. But later, Ethan's father had betrayed his marriage, bringing back his mistress and illegitimate child, Ethan. That forced Adrian's mother to divorce and take Adrian away. Because of this scandal, Mr. Hale had gone to my grandfather to beg for help, leading to the engagement being switched so that I would marry Ethan instead. Adrian had returned twice in the past, both times to see me. But back then I hadn't known any of this. My attitude had been cold and eventually he stopped coming. Like father, like son. Ethan's father was treacherous. But Adrian in my memories was cold, proud, and noble. Adrian was polite and refined. Of course he was. Only a legitimate firstborn son could be raised like that. I asked my parents for his contact information and sent him a message directly. "Are you free tomorrow, Stella Stone?" His reply came immediately. "Tomorrow isn't convenient. Could we meet the day after? Tomorrow is my graduation ceremony, and I'm giving a speech." I responded, "Okay, the day after it is. See you then," he added. "I've been hoping to meet you. Good night." Knowing yourself and knowing your opponent means victory every time. After confirming our meeting, I began investigating Adrian Hale. When I read through his information, I couldn't help but inhale sharply. Hardly anyone in the circle ever mentioned his name, so I had always assumed he was just an ordinary man. I didn't expect him to be anything but ordinary. He was extraordinary. He studied at one of the top Ivy League universities in the world, was one of the most outstanding Chinese American students, and was also the youngest guest professor in his field. His status was practically unmatched. I'm sorry my flight was delayed, so I arrived later than expected. A tall young man close to 6 feet 2 inches with a high straight nose and gold-rimmed glasses that glinted under the light stepped toward me, holding a bouquet of sunflowers. He bowed slightly as he apologized. Behind him, the floor-to-ceiling windows were drenched in the fiery glow of sunset. Adrian Hale looked as though he had stepped straight out of an oil painting. I accepted the sunflowers and smiled gently. It's fine. I just got here. His eyes were soft and clear, making me instinctively look away. Stella, you don't have to feel pressured, he said. I'm very glad you were willing to reach out to me. His voice was low and warm, like the gentle older boy who lived next door. It was clearly our first meeting. Yet, the way he said my name felt so familiar, so natural. Maybe he understood me more than he let on. He definitely wasn't as simple as he appeared. As I lightly swirled the wine glass in my hand, I asked, Adrian, do you know why I wanted to meet you? Adrian nodded calmly. Naturally, even though I've been abroad, I still pay attention to things occasionally. At the banquet the other day, Ethan publicly broke off your engagement because of another woman. The Hale family's stock dropped at least $17 billion immediately after. You're a proud woman, so of course you wouldn't want to cooperate with him anymore. But because your grandfather values loyalty in relationships, you chose me instead. His intelligence felt dangerous, but that only made him more intriguing. I smiled slightly. So, are you interested? Adrian nodded. Of course I am. Otherwise, why would I have rushed back thousands of miles, right? His answer wasn't surprising, but I still wanted to probe a little deeper. If you really wanted something, even without my help, it wouldn't be difficult for you, would it? He looked at me, his gaze deep. But the thing I want has only just appeared. So I was the prey he had his eyes on all along. I lifted the corner of my lips. Then we'll see whether you have the ability to claim it. After dinner, he drove me home, and in his car trunk, he had even prepared gifts for my parents. Thoughtful indeed. My parents weren't surprised to see him. They even patted his shoulder warmly and invited him to come over for dinner anytime he was free. Adrian handled everything gracefully, far more refined than Ethan by 10 whole streets. Clearly, my parents had promised him long ago, and yet he held no resentment. Instead, he had maintained a friendly relationship with our family for years. His heart and character were generous and open, remarkably so. Watching his silhouette as he left, my mother couldn't help but sigh. If it were him, your father and I would truly feel at ease in trusting you to him. My father agreed, praising Adrian's character, saying he was just like his mother, noble and exceptional. My parents rarely compliment anyone. Yet tonight they both praised Adrian Hale. That alone proved how outstanding he truly was. If I had to marry someone from the Hale family, then perhaps he wouldn't be a bad choice at all. Adrian's sudden return threw the long, quiet Hale family into chaos, like thunder exploding across a clear sky. When Adrian mentioned that he planned to stay in the country from now on, Mr. Hale's expression immediately became complicated, while Ethan reacted as if someone had struck a nerve. But after all, he had always been the little prince of the Hale family, raised as the heir, and with me behind him as support. He had enjoyed smooth success for years. Because of that, he had assumed everything naturally belonged to him. Now, for the first time, he felt a true sense of danger. In my previous life, my biggest mistake was being far too soft-hearted. Ethan was incredibly good at acting and understood my personality all too well. So he knew exactly how to exploit my weakness. Ever since I was a child, I had been taught to be polite, never to bully others with my social standing, to value loyalty and kindness, and to sympathize with those who were weaker. Those teachings weren't wrong, but they were meant for people who shared similar character. When dealing with petty, vicious people, if you didn't uproot the weed completely, it would grow back as soon as the spring breeze arrived. Before, I never understood why Ethan was so obsessed with Lena. But when I looked at Adrian, I suddenly understood. Some people were simply made of the same kind of material. An illegitimate child born to a social climber like Ethan and a white-eyed ingrate who clung shamelessly to her benefactors like Lena. They naturally belonged to the same world. Of course, they would feel a sense of kinship. Meanwhile, just one glance from Adrian told me we were the ones truly cut from the same cloth. That was how important compatibility between families really was. The next morning, I changed into a formal dress and brought valuable gifts to visit Mr. Hale, partly to follow my grandfather's wishes, and partly to give Adrian an additional advantage. Even though I knew he had more than enough ability to handle things himself, why shouldn't I use the opportunity to score points in his heart and irritate Ethan at the same time? I wanted Ethan to understand that without me, he was nothing. I had visited the Hale residence many times before, so the moment the servants saw me, they immediately invited me in. When Mr. Hale saw me, his expression brightened instantly. He called me over warmly. "Stella, come sit next to me and have breakfast with me." That seat had originally belonged to Ethan. He shifted slightly, and a servant quickly added another chair beside him. I smiled softly, then walked right past Ethan and sat next to Adrian, who was sitting in the far corner. "Put the seat here." I heard Adrian just returned to the country, so I came especially to see him. Mr. Hale glanced at Adrian, his gaze complicated. "If that's the case, then all of you sit here." Just like that, Adrian's seat moved from a hidden corner to right beside Mr. Hale, directly facing Ethan. Ethan's expression darkened, his eyes filled with resentment as he stared at me. I only smiled as I ladled soup into Adrian's bowl. "Adrian, I saw you in a national magazine the other day," I said. "You're the youngest guest professor at Holland University, the third-ranked school in the world. That's impressive. I've always admired smart classmates. I guess from now on, I'll have to eat with you more often so I can learn a bit of that academic aura." Mr. Hale looked surprised, examining Adrian from head to toe. He had never been close to Adrian, and with no one around him ever mentioning the boy, he naturally hadn't asked. Now that he knew how capable Adrian was, he clearly began calculating differently. He spoke first. "Since you're back, you shouldn't stay idle. Come to the company tomorrow." Ethan quickly cut in. "Grandpa, he just came back. He should rest a bit. Besides, he's just a professor. He doesn't know anything about managing a company." Adrian smiled lightly. "I have dual master's degrees in economics and business administration. I may not have hands-on experience yet, but I'm sure it won't be difficult." Ethan's face immediately collapsed, every bit of his petty anxiety written plainly across his features. I stirred my coffee and hid the flicker of mockery in my eyes. In my previous life he had acted even better. He tricked me into lending him money, got me drunk, and deceived me into signing a contract that allowed him to take everything. He left me with nothing and in the end even sold me overseas into a red-light district. If I hadn't woken up just in time in the car, I might not have been able to die even if I wanted to. Just because of those 4 words. "Are you sure?" I asked that day. They became a death sentence for me in my past life. I lifted my cup of coffee about to drink when Adrian gently placed his cup in front of me. "Drink this one. It has milk and sugar. It won't be bitter." Ethan let out a contemptuous laugh. "Stella has never once drunk sweet coffee." Adrian slightly pulled his hand back, but I placed mine over his wrist and smiled softly. "I didn't like it before, but now I want to try." I took a sip. It was indeed a little sweet and creamy, but not unpleasant at all. I smiled faintly. "Not bad. From now on I'll take my coffee with milk and sugar." If earlier I had only been offering him subtle support, then now I was openly standing on his side. Mr. Hale's once clouded eyes lit up. "Stella, what Ethan did a few days ago was wrong, but the engagement between our 2 families was arranged by your grandfather and me. We've considered you as part of our family since you were a child. If Ethan isn't suitable, then how about Adrian?" "No, that won't do." Ethan's face turned pale with panic as he shouted. "Stella isn't some object we can just swap around." Only now did he finally realize that if I chose Adrian, his position as heir would crumble completely. He had basked in all the glory I brought him, yet had never shown a trace of gratitude. Compared to his frantic panic, Adrian remained completely calm, even casually offering me a piece of cake. I smiled and said slowly, "Grandpa Hale, let me think about it." Mr. Hale burst into hearty laughter. Even though I hadn't agreed yet, he clearly understood my meaning. From this moment on, Adrian would have his full support. After breakfast, Adrian and I prepared to head out together. Right at the gate, Ethan suddenly jumped out, his expression twisted with frustration. "I need to talk to Stella alone." Adrian didn't bother acknowledging him. He simply bowed his head slightly toward me. After I gave him a small nod, he turned and walked away. Stella, my brother isn't a good person. You should stay away from him. I crossed my arms and smirked. Oh, and what exactly counts as not a good person? Someone who was engaged to me for 15 years, then suddenly ran off with another woman. Ethan's expression tightened clearly. I had hit the mark. His voice softened. Stella, I've always seen you as a sister. But in my heart, you've always been the most special person to me. Without Lena, things would be different. She has nothing besides me, so I have to protect her. I know you're kind and pure. You'd definitely help us, right? On the surface, his tone was gentle, but in his eyes sparkled smugness. In my previous life, he had said the same things countless times. Eventually, I stopped believing him. I only helped him out of pity and the remnants of old affection. I let out a quiet, icy laugh. Do you know why your brother returned so suddenly from overseas? He froze. Why? The corner of my lips curled. Because my grandfather owes your grandfather a debt. That's why the engagement between me and the Hale family must continue. But your family doesn't have only one son. Ethan, you've already been eliminated. If you feel awkward calling me Miss Stone, then feel free to call me sister-in-law instead. And I didn't bother lowering my voice at all, making sure Adrian, who wasn't far away, heard every word clearly. Infuriated, Ethan stood stiff for a long moment before finally spitting out. Stella, why have you become so shallow now? I scoffed. Yes, I really was shallow back then, wasn't I? With that, I strode toward Adrian. He bowed slightly and opened the car door for me. His lips curved in a faint smile. I had already stopped underestimating him, but even so, I hadn't expected him to bring me so many surprises. Even though Ethan had worked at the company for years and most of the employees were his loyal supporters, in less than half a month, Adrian had already secured his footing and even delivered a stunning victory. He won an overseas project the company had chased for 2 years without success. On top of that, it was the largest deal since the company had been founded. Immediately afterward, he expanded the company's entire business network in the UK and personally established a branch office there. On my part, I occasionally visited the company to have lunch with him. Many partners who had cut ties previously began expressing interest in working with the Hale family again, causing Adrian's reputation within the company to rise rapidly. Even the loyal supporters of Ethan had no choice but to admit that Adrian far surpassed him. Eventually, with the unanimous approval of the board of directors and shareholders, Adrian officially became a CEO equal in rank to Ethan. Naturally, Ethan grew restless. He caught wind of internal news that the city center was about to be relocated to the suburbs to build a pedestrian district. At that moment, a plot of land was about to be auctioned off. There was no way he would let that opportunity slip. Adrian and I were seated in a private viewing room above the auction hall, looking down as Ethan and Lena took their seats below. Adrian tilted his head slightly toward me and smiled. You invited me here. Don't tell me it's only because of this auction. I laughed. Of course not. Don't underestimate me. You've been in the CEO seat for a while now. I'm planning to get you a vice chairman position too. He chuckled softly and nodded. Then I'll look forward to seeing how you handle things. He carefully peeled a grape and placed it on a clean plate in front of me, motioning for me to eat. He had always been attentive. The first time I visited his company, I happened to eat more grapes during lunch and he never forgot. He had never openly expressed romantic interest, but whenever I was around, his eyes always followed me. The auction began. The initial items were small things, jewelry, paintings, but the real valuables wouldn't appear until later. Still, even the smaller items weren't cheap. After all, anything put on an auction stage had some value. However, to the wealthy, such things hardly mattered. But Lena was different. Just hearing the flowery introductions had her enchanted. She kept raising her bidding paddle. A few $100,000 meant nothing to Ethan, so he let her enjoy herself. Since I was idle anyway, I instructed my assistant to raise the paddle whenever Lena did. Every time she bid, I immediately outbid her, forcing her to pay several times the price for each item she wanted. After a few rounds, Lena finally realized what I was doing. Furious, she lifted her head and glared at me. I leaned lazily against the railing. the folding fan in my hand swaying gently as I gave her a teasing smile. Adrian stepped out from the private room and stood beside me, lowering his head to whisper with a soft chuckle. You seem to enjoy teasing the two of them. My gaze remained calm and deep. Yeah, I happen to have time lately. Ethan finally looked up at me as well. In the past, he always sat with me in the private room. Now, without me, he could only sit in the general seating area below. His eyes were cold, no longer bothering to hide anything. Over the past few days, he had tried contacting me, desperate because his situation had worsened, but I completely ignored him as though I never heard a thing. The irony was that the miserable situation he was currently in had been crafted step by step by me. Why would I ever reach out a helping hand? Waiting for the right moment to deliver a fatal blow was far more satisfying. Realizing I was deliberately toying with her, Lena stopped bidding, but not before losing more than 2 million. Obviously, that still wasn't enough. Right then, the next item was a jadeite bracelet starting at 3 million. I immediately raised my paddle. The jade quality was excellent. A few people joined in briefly, but once the bidding climbed to 5 million, they began to withdraw. Lena instantly raised her paddle. 5,200,000. I raised mine as well. 5.5 million. The corner of her lips curled in a smug smile. 5,600,000. I raised my paddle again, smiling with complete confidence. 6 million. My smile clearly stunned Lena, but she didn't hesitate. 6 million. Ethan tried to stop her, but it was already too late. The bid had been called. All right. 6 million once, twice, 3 times. Congratulations, Mr. Ethan Hale. Ethan turned back and glared at me with pure hatred while I beamed as brightly as a flower. Adrian let out a quiet laugh. Spending that much just to buy a bracelet? He's definitely getting scolded by Grandpa tonight. I curved my lips. Don't underestimate me. If it were only for that, why would I invite you here? When the final plot of land was announced, Adrian immediately understood. He pushed his gold-rimmed glasses up slightly, his eyes deep. Even 10 Ethans couldn't compare to you. Your plan started the moment you returned, didn't it? Whether I'm here or not doesn't make much difference. He wasn't wrong. He was here merely to give me legitimacy. Even without him, the outcome would have been the same. After all, the Stone family had long been entirely in my hands. 13 billion, 15 billion, 18 billion. The rumor I planted 3 months ago hit Ethan's weak spot. Exactly. He gritted his teeth and raised the bid to 25 billion. That number instantly forced out everyone who still had thoughts of competing. I lifted my paddle leisurely. 30 billion. I wasn't afraid he wouldn't follow because right now he desperately needed a chance to crush Adrian, and the budget he controlled was 50 billion. This was already the company's limit. Of course, I wasn't planning to drive him into a dead end. When the price reached 39 billion, I withdrew immediately. Ethan let out a shaky breath, wiping cold sweat from his forehead. Adrian frowned slightly. You stopped so quickly. I smiled. I should at least leave him some money to struggle with, shouldn't I? Adrian stayed silent for 2 seconds, then nodded. You're right. When we stepped out of the auction hall, Ethan was already waiting at the entrance, his voice dripping with smugness. Your only chance to defeat me is gone. I was worried you two might actually win that land. It would have been troublesome. After all, I'm nowhere near as rich as Miss Stone here. Never expected you'd be too scared to fight me. Makes sense, though. My sources are far better than yours, he sneered. Do you even know what that land represents, Adrian? No matter how capable or outstanding you are, you'll always be a loser in my hands. And you too, Stella. What you did to embarrass me at the banquet, you'll pay for it soon. Everyone who ever looked down on me, I'll crush them under my feet. When petty men get even a little taste of triumph, arrogance is inevitable, especially after being crushed by me and Adrian for so long. He had been stewing in resentment, and now he finally had a moment to vent. How could he not revel in it? I smiled meaningfully. The rumor about the city relocating. Oh, I forgot to tell you. I'm the one who spread it. Want to hear more rumors? My friends know all sorts of things. I can help you relocate anytime. Ethan snorted disdainfully. Stop bragging. Do you even know where my information came from? It was leaked from upper management. Right then his phone rang. Mr. Hale's furious voice blasted through the speaker. Who allowed you to spend 39 billion on that useless plot of land? Next to it is a forest reserve. You can't build houses. Can't build factories. Are you insane? Get back here immediately. Ethan froze in shock. No. No way. Upper management said clearly the city center would move there. There would be a new central district. You idiot. That was a trap they set up for you and you walked right into it. I thought as long as you held the company together it would be enough. But I didn't expect you to be this stupid. You're not even 1/10 of Adrian. Don't you dare set foot in the company again, you disgrace. The call ended abruptly. Immediately after, Adrian's phone rang. He answered. Yes. Hale's voice came through again, but this time Mr. Hale's voice was much gentler. Adrian, come back to the company for a meeting. The senior shareholders are all waiting. Try to arrive a little early. Yes, Grandpa. I'll head back now. Ethan finally snapped out of his daze. His eyes were bloodshot as he roared. Stella Stone, this was all a trap you set up, wasn't it? Adrian stepped in front of me, blocking Ethan. I leaned my head to the side, smiling mockingly. Congratulations. You finally figured it out. Ethan lunged toward me in rage, but Adrian punched him straight to the ground. Don't jump around in front of us, Adrian said, his voice cold as he looked down at him like he was an insect. I'm not as kind as my mother. Understand? Just that casual sentence was enough to make fear flash through Ethan's eyes. He scrambled to his feet and stumbled away in humiliation. He was terrified of Adrian, terrified down to his bones. Once we got in the car, Adrian removed his gold-rimmed glasses, and his entire aura shifted, sharper, colder, like an entirely different person. But when he looked at me, his gaze softened again. Let's grab something to eat first. After that, I'll take you back to the company. I blinked. Isn't your grandfather urging you to go back? The company must be in absolute chaos right now. He gave a faint, unconcerned smile. Whenever there's a problem, they immediately try to dump it on me. So what if they wait a little longer? I didn't answer. Everyone had secrets they didn't want to revisit, but he spoke first. I was supposed to have a little sister. His voice was calm, but his words were heavy. Back then, Ethan's mother showed up. My mother was already more than 4 months pregnant. It was Ethan who pushed her down the stairs. My sister didn't survive. But because he was still young and his mother knelt and begged, and because my father favored them, my mother decided to divorce him and take me away. My maternal grandparents were furious and wanted revenge. After all, the Hale family is nothing compared to them. But my mother was too soft-hearted, and since you and Ethan already had a verbal engagement at the time, they let the matter go. I pressed my lips together and looked up at him. Have you ever blamed us? He shook his head. Of course not. You were the most innocent one. You got dragged into it for no reason. Sometimes I resented you for being thoughtless. You once said you'd marry me, but you forgot about me as soon as you turned around. But seeing how radiant and proud you are now, I'm grateful. You're still the same little girl from back then. No wonder my parents always praised you for having exceptional character and spoke highly of your mother as a refined lady who raised a son with a vast, generous heart. I pulled a document folder from my bag and handed it to him. Sorry, I don't remember anything from when we were kids. Consider this compensation. Inside were 10% of the Hale Group's original shares worth 700 million. Adrian let out a soft laugh. As expected of a true Aries. You're very generous. I smiled. I said it was compensation. Naturally, you should feel my sincerity. He looked up, eyes bright. Soon, I'll let you experience my sincerity too. Talking to a smart person was always simple, an equal exchange. Adrian smoothly became vice president of the company. His first action was to expel Ethan and all of his loyal followers. Then he immediately transformed that useless piece of red soil land into a luxury retirement estate, securing a massive loan to cover the financial hole. His capability was undeniable. Skilled, resourceful, well-connected. He was born to dominate the business world. Of course, I wasn't inferior. I secured multiple national-level projects and accepted several additional initiatives tied to the One Belt, One Road development plan, turning the Stone Group into a key government partner, rising from the top of the pyramid to a near unquestioned power. In a short period of time, my name spread everywhere. Meanwhile, Ethan Hale, the one who once threw money around like trash, found his credit cards restricted by Adrian. Every month, he had to rely on the $100,000 of living expenses his mother gave him. For an ordinary family, that amount would be more than enough. But for Lena, who had just tasted the sweetness of high society, it was obviously far from sufficient. A poor couple in a tragedy. The sweeter their past had been, the more bitter and petty their arguments became. There was even a time when Ethan went drinking with friends, and when the bill came, he didn't have enough money to pay. The incident became a joke among everyone in the circle. Eventually, he couldn't take it anymore and came looking for me. Stella, Lena lied to me. She was never the innocent, kind person she pretended to be. She always said she didn't care about my money. But now, in our situation, she argues every single day. Do you know how much she used to spend of my money? And now when I tell her to sell a few handbags to help cover expenses, she refuses. She even says they're hers and I have no right to interfere. Stella, I regret everything. I really regret it. At that moment, Adrian walked out from behind a wall, lifting his gaze as he stared coldly at Ethan, who reeked of alcohol and looked completely disheveled. With a faint mocking laugh, he said, "Little brother, are you trying to leech off someone again?" Ethan's hands clenched, veins bulging on his forehead. "Don't think you got the company because of your ability. Without Stella helping you, you'd still be a broke professor overseas. She's just using you. She doesn't love you. Don't let her fool you." I curled my lips. "Oh, he doesn't love me, but you do. Is that it?" Ethan blurted out. "Yes, Stella, I love you." I arched a brow. "Really? And what exactly can you use to prove it?" Right in front of me, he immediately called Lena. "Lena, we're done. Stop clinging to me." The phone rang with Lena's hysterical screaming on the other end. But Ethan hung up brusquely and looked at me for approval. I let out a cold laugh. "Ethan, what makes you think that after experiencing your brother, I would even bother looking at you again? If you don't have a mirror at home, I can buy you a few so you can see exactly how worthless you are." With that, I slammed the door shut, leaving him outside. As for Lena, her days were anything but easy. Since Ethan no longer gained any benefit from me, he directed all his anger at her. "If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have fallen this far. Everyone used to call me young Master Hale, the little crown prince. Now everyone steps on me and looks down on me. All you know how to do is spend money, you empty-headed, shameless woman. Cry again and I'll throw you out. Let's see how you survive on the streets." The transition from irritation to abuse was frighteningly easy. But Lena didn't dare leave. She had spent years enjoying luxury and indulgence. Once she'd tasted the life of the wealthy, how could she willingly let go? She believed that as long as she got pregnant, the Hale family would surely accept the child. She finally did manage to get pregnant. Holding the test results, she happily waited to show Ethan. But that day, he came home drunk, dragged in by a group of trashy drinking buddies, and those men directly assaulted her. She lost the baby. When everything was over, Lena reported them to the police. Ethan sobered up only when he was inside the station, and the Hale family had to pay $3 million to get Lena to testify that the incident had nothing to do with Ethan. If she couldn't enter the wealthy world, $3 million was enough to let her live comfortably for half her life. But just as she held the money ready to leave, her poor parents from the mountains suddenly appeared and dragged both her and the money away. I heard that her ending was extremely tragic. She never saw the $3 million again and was instead sold to an even more remote mountain village to marry an old bachelor who had beaten 3 previous wives to death. She became his 4th. As for Ethan, he managed to keep his life, but his mother was thrown out of the Hale family's old residence. No one dared speak up for them because now the Hale family was under Adrienne's control. And since I was the primary shareholder holding the largest stake in the entire group, I had the authority to appoint or dismiss anyone directly. Ethan's father had almost been kicked out of the company as well. The entire family had no choice but to watch Adrienne's expression to survive. On the day Adrienne and I were married, the entire elite circle of the capital attended. Ethan, once the golden prince of high society, could only curl up at the farthest corner table, drinking himself into oblivion. He even tried to stir up trouble, but the security guards dragged him out immediately. Unfortunately for him, Just then a truck sped past outside and ran straight over him. His body turned into a mangled pile of flesh and blood. Adrian instinctively reached out to shield my eyes, but I stared directly at the scene, watching carefully, even with interest. This was a play I personally directed. Why would I be afraid? Casually, I set my empty wine glass down. On the table lay a newspaper with bold headlines across the front page, exposing the hellish life of a girl trafficked into the mountains. Death was her only escape. Right in the center was a photo of Lena hanging lifeless in a pigsty. Her limbs had been almost completely eaten by pigs. The sight was gruesome. "Stella, what are you thinking about that makes you so happy?" Adrian asked. I tucked a strand of hair behind my ear and smiled brightly. "Today really is a wonderful day." Adrian's fingers tightened around my 10 fingers, and he glanced at the newspaper as well. He smiled gently like a warm spring breeze. "Yes, today truly is a wonderful day.